Wilmington Library on March 4th for our annual Dancing with the Stars Gala. This is a fundraising event to support our award-winning library. The Wilmington Library won the IMLS Medal in 2022, the Danaconda Award for Exemplary Public Relations, and named one of the most beautiful libraries in the county by Voters Travel. You do not want to miss this amazing night featuring award-winning actress Timmons Bledsoe, producer and actor Daryl Bell, gospel singer Anthony Evans, and many other amazing stars. Get your tickets today on Eventbrite. We'll see you there.
Hi, this is Daryl Bell.
And Tempest Bledsoe. And we are looking forward to seeing you at the Wilmington Public Library on March 4th at 6 p.m.
for Dancing with the Stars, Delaware. Get your tickets now.
We'll be dancing.
And the prancing.
You bring yourself in this house right now. And if you think that 30-minute ride is something to believe in me, shut you're lying on the floor of some burning building, dying of asphyxia, and you're down in Baltimore, having big fun. Weren't you? Isn't that where you were? Didn't you go down there to Baltimore and have big fun? Vanessa, tell me, didn't you go for big fun? Shut up! Don't you dare open your mouth, and I'm asking you a question. Rudy, go to bed. I only hope that you can have the same experience, Vanessa. I hope that one day you come to realize exactly how it feels to think that your child's life is in danger. You have taken us from levels of frenzy, panic, distress, and now that we know you're okay, rage. That's where we are right now, Vanessa. We are in rage because we know that you have been to Baltimore, Maryland, with the wretched to have big fun. Big fun. Isn't that what you had, Vanessa? Didn't you have big fun? Well, let's see now. You had donuts. Had donuts in Wilmington, Delaware. Up in the local donut shop in Wilmington, Delaware, sipping hot chocolate and eating crumbs, and the car gets stolen. Now, a normal individual with half a gnat's brain would have said, I'm going home now. But you, oh no, not you. You and your three friends put yourselves on a bus and go joyride off to Baltimore, all the way to Baltimore.
What were you thinking?
Wasn't thinking.
You got that?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Wilmington Library staff, I'd like to welcome you to the third part of our Voices of Power series. And we are pleased to present you with two extraordinary women and who, in my opinion, personify what Black history means. I have the pleasure of introducing our moderator, who is Wilmington's own Dr. Bertice Berry. And Dr. Berry personifies Black history because we come from a people who have transcended insurmountable odds. And people who, when others tell them that they can't do something, they not only do it, but they exceed, they prevail. And that's what Dr. Berry has done. Dr. Berry had a teacher here in Wilmington, Delaware, that told her that she would never amount to anything, that she'd never go to college. And she's gone all over the world teaching other people. She has an earned PhD. She's a comedian. She's won all kinds of awards. She's had a talk show. So I just have the pleasure and honor to welcome, let's give her a warm welcome home, Dr. Bertice Berry.
Oh my God, thank you. Hi, y'all. I am so humbled and honored and grateful, and I can't believe this is happening. This is so crazy and wonderful on so many levels. I used to clean the Wilmington Public Library. And it was usually when P.S. DuPont got out, Mr. Leander Morris would have us have choir rehearsal afterwards, and B.B. Coker would have us working out and ready to do stuff. And so the job cleaning didn't start until 6 or 7 after the bank closed. The library was open later back then. And I would come here between cleaning. But this was where I found so many things, the world in books. And we came in through downstairs, and I was like, look at all they done down here. This used to be microfiche and microfilm. But in that microfiche and microfilm, I could find all of these things. Some of you had a librarian named Atlanta Brown. And Miss Brown followed me from George Gray to Warner to P.S. And Miss Brown would always hand me books by and about black people. And one day I got up the nerve to ask her an important question. I was like, Miss Brown, you got any happy black books? Miss Brown said, why, yes, I do. She grabbed this collection of poetry, dropped it, and it fell right to Langston Hughes' Scarred and Battered. I've been scarred and battered, my hopes the wind and scattered, snowed and freeze me, sun done bake me. Looks like tween 'em, they trying to make me stop living, stop laughing, stop loving, but I don't care, because I'm still here. I said, Miss Brown, where the happy part? She said that last line, I'm still here.
That's it.
And it's up to you to figure out what to do with the fact that in spite of all that our ancestors have been through, you are still here. So I used my time in the library to plot and plan my strategy. I said strategy. BB said, you can do it. Karen Denton said, you got this. They set me on a path to go to college. I didn't know anything about it. I graduated with honors, won the President's Cup for leadership. I called my family and said, I'm going to graduate school. They said, we thought you already graduated. I didn't know 9 hours was a full load, so I took 18. Finished my master's in 2 semesters, maintained a 4.0, and got that PhD at 26. Wilmington, Delaware is truly the place to be somebody. And tonight we have the opportunity to learn from someone who has taken this recipe for life to not only be someone, but to conduct the modern day underground, overground railroad, to mentor and lead and guide so many into freedom. Before we get started, as we like to do in Wilmington, Delaware, and everywhere else, there is some black peoples. I would like to introduce Lynn Wilson, who is going to lead us in the national anthem. Oh, it's supposed to be the black national anthem. I'm sorry. It's the only one they taught us. To lead us in the black national anthem, please rise.
As you're rising, they asked me to share just briefly. This song was written by James Weldon Johnson, a longtime leader in the NAACP, put to music by his brother Rosamond, written around the year 1900 for Lincoln's birthday for a choir to sing. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And was adopted by the NAACP in 1919 as the Black National Anthem. Many people are offended by it being called our national anthem, but you have to think about the fact that it was written in 1900, made our anthem in 1919 and 1776. When this country was founded, black people were not even considered whole persons. We were owned by people. In 1814, when the Star-Spangled Banner was written by Francis Scott Key, black people were still enslaved. In 1863, when the Emancipation Proclamation took effect, fact, black people as far as Galveston, Texas, didn't even receive their freedom until June 19th, 1865. And the Star-Spangled Banner didn't even become the national anthem until 1931, 12 years later, after black people had already acknowledged our anthem to lift our voices, to sing and to resound. And even in all this, even after we were freed from slavery, we were still living in a time when we weren't allowed to vote. And once they gave us the right to vote, they tried to intimidate us from the voting polls. And I say that because of the season we're living in today, that regardless of where you stand politically, theologically, we were all created equal. We were all created to be seen. We were all created to be valued, to be loved, and we have worth. So until they realized that this land of the brave was built on the backs of the oppressed and that the home of the free, we still are not clearly all free, and that somebody who looks like me ought to be able to walk home at night, we'll continue to sing these words. Lift every voice. Lift every voice and sing, come on y'all, till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing us. That's it. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us, facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod, felt in the days when hope unborn had died, yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place for which our Father said. We have come. We have come over a way that with tears have been watered. We have come treading the path with blood of the slaughtered. Out from the gloomy past, still now we stand at last, where the white gleam of our bright star is. God of our weary years, God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who has brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into the light. Keep us forever in the path, we pray. Lift our feet straight from the places, our God, where we met thee. Lest our hearts, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee, shadowed beneath thy hand. May we forever stand true to to our God, true to our name.
Thank you, thank you. And thank you all of you. You could tell who, you know. I'm not even going to say anything else. Apparently, I don't even have to. He says some of us had to learn it when we pledged. Okay. And some of us had to learn it when we grew up in Wilmington. So I cannot even tell you, there are so many things that are going through me right now that are just kind of crazy. I just wrote this book. I wrote a book 4 years ago. It took me 4 years to edit it. And I had this flu and I thought I was going to die, and I felt like I needed to leave something. So I wrote this book. And it's called Black World, and there'll be a signing afterwards tonight, Black World. The book's not really out yet. So when Rashad called, I'm sorry, not Rashad, Jamar called and said, we want you to interview someone here at the library. I was like, did you know the library is in the book? He was like, no. And I said, well, who do you want me to interview? And he told me, and I said, you are not going to believe this. Her mother is a member of the council in Black World. And he was like, well, what's Black World? And I said, Black World is a corner of heaven where the living and the dead can go to converse, to find problems and solve solutions. And are you saying wrap it up or take your time or go? Okay. So I am incredibly honored, as you all are, to talk to the brilliant actor, singer, director, professor, dean of the Chadwick Boseman College of Fine Arts at Howard University. Please give it up for Dean Phylicia Rashad. Keep it up. Honey, tell me. Oh. They are all saying what I said when I saw you. She has not changed one bit. You all, before we get started, there is a 2-minute presentation that the AKAs would like to give to their sister, Dean Rashad.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Ronise Barnett-Smith, and I am the president of the Sigma Zeta Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, located in Newark, Delaware. And I am joined with, on this stage with my first vice president, Mrs. Karen Knight, and also the president and the first vice president of the Zeta Omega chapter in Wilmington, Delaware, Mrs. Sharice Johnson and Mrs. Ethel Buffon. And we are honored to welcome you to Delaware. And we'd like to present you with a plaque on behalf of all of your Delaware Alpha Kappa Alpha sisters in commemoration of this auspicious moment and to honor the important work that you do. Thank you so much, Sister Felicia. And now we're going to have Mrs. Karen Knight read the plaque.
Thank you. The plaque reads, "Salute to our dear sorority sister, Phylicia Rashad, a dynamic, innovative, humanitarian, love the Delaware AKA chapters, and is dated for today, February the 15th, 2013, and it is in the shape of the first and finest state of Delaware. Additionally, we have a tribute from one of our state representatives, Sherry Dorsey Walker, who is also our sorority sister. Thank you.
Good evening, sister. I'm Representative Sherry Dorsey Walker, also known as a soror, and this is a very long tribute, but what we're going to do is just say we love you, God bless you, in Matthew 6:33, seek ye first the kingdom of God and all his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. God bless you and keep you.
All right. We were talking backstage, and one of the things that I absolutely adore about you is what you bring to the world. Many people think of you as actor or director or singer, Broadway, extraordinaire, all these things. I think of you as this conductor on the underground, modern day Underground Railroad. You have mentored and brought and taught, and Chadwick Boseman, thank you very much. What is it that you see in others that enables you to see what we need in the world?
All right, see, when somebody asks a question, I'll give an answer. And I'm going to preface this with saying, what I'm about to say to you might sound very strange, but it's the truth. You ask, what is it that I see? One morning, very, very early, as I lay asleep next to my then 7-year-old son, I had what some would describe as an out-of-body experience. In this experience, I could see everything in that room 360. I could see the windows and the blinds and the walls and the doors and the doorknobs, the planks on the floor, the light fixtures in the ceiling, the bed on which we lay. I saw our bodies on the bed, okay? I was watching this, and who was this I? The only way I can describe this is there was a very palpable feeling of love that was so strong and so almost overwhelming, and yet it felt very natural. It was this love. And when I opened my eyes, that feeling was pulsating inside me, and I couldn't move for a good while. Now, I've often, and that presence, that I was distinctly feminine. I was everything that I saw Everything that I had seen, everything that I saw had come from me. I was those things, but I was not those things. I was that love that was pulsating, from which all things had come. I lay there and I couldn't move. And as I thought about this experience more and more, I thought, this isn't just the truth for me, it's the truth for everybody.
Yes.
We are this love. If I were to have the same experience right in this moment, I would be looking as I'm looking now, seeing everything and everyone and and be very conscious of the fact that this presence, everything I see had come from this presence. That's everyone in this room. That love is the truth, not just for me, but for all of us. And that's what I see in people.
You're not supposed to ask a question you don't know the answer to. And I'm so glad I didn't know the answer to that. That whole idea of the I and seeing and knowing the I. Your mother, before I knew that this was happening, is in this book. Vivian Ayers Allen, poet, laureate. She's amazing, brilliant, incredible woman. What didn't you get from her? What from her has brought you to here?
My mother was both, well, first of all, she was so beautiful. She literally, not like mommy. This is true. Mommy was so beautiful. She literally stopped traffic in downtown Mexico City.
Yes.
Literally.
She was known as the most beautiful, exciting, amazing woman alive, and she's still alive.
She's 99 years old. My mother was born in Chester, South Carolina. All right. So you know, she's born right on the corner of Loomis and Cemetery Street. Well, Marquis. Yeah, Loomis and Marquis. I'm sorry, Loomis and Marquis. Directly across from the campus of Brainerd Institute. This was one of those schools that was founded by the Presbytery for the descendants of freed African people. My mother attended this school, her parents attended this school, her grandparents attended this school. Yeah, I heard so much about this school growing up. Her mother passed away when she was 9 years old. And she said when she went to her mother's funeral and she saw the adults and heard the things they were saying, 9 years old, she decided that none of them was smart enough to tell her anything. But she wasn't going to tell them that. But she decided then that she would have to make her own way, 9 years old. And she used to swing in the swing that was in the tree on the side of the house in the front. She told me she used to swing in the swing and look up at the sky dreaming big dreams. Chester, South Carolina was a mill town, right? Yeah, it was a mill town. Brainerd Institute was a center, in those days, it was a center for the community, educational center and culture and simple way of life, very, very simple way of life. Her father was a blacksmith. Her mother had graduated from Hampton Institute, and she was and she was an expert seamstress. She could look at a picture of a garment and make it. Well, things like that were taught in those days. We might want to reconsider that.
Talk about it.
We might want to reconsider a lot of things in terms of teaching, especially when we hear reports about language being changed in history books, are we supposed to just accept that? Yeah. So anyway, she played piano. She played so well that Sidney Claude Bechet wanted to take her with her as his protege. And she was so angry her father wouldn't let her go. I said, well, wait a minute, Mama, how old were you? I was 15. And I looked at her and said, really, Mom? You wouldn't let us go somewhere at 15 like that. How you gonna run off with some musicians and be a protege at 15? Come on, Turk. That's what we call her, Turk. You know, she was always doing the unexpected and the unusual. My father was a dentist. And somewhere in my early childhood, my mother began to write. And like most writers, or many a good writer, she would get up in the early hours of the morning. My father didn't understand. My parents divorced when I was 6. I never missed my father because he was always there. My parents had the good sense to allow us to love them both. I thank them for that. Mm-hmm. So she was writing poetry. And who in Houston, Texas, in their right mind in the 1950s, what black woman was writing poetry? You know that women said, oh, those poor children. Oh, they'll never amount to anything. She feeds them figs and Coca-Cola, you know. I'm telling you, Mommy she would make clothes and things that nobody else was wearing. She'd get us up at 5 in the morning and drive us down to Galveston so we could see a sunrise. She would take us out to Herman Park at night so we would listen to symphonies. When she wrote her second book, Hawk, which is an allegory of freedom that parallels space flight, it was published and released 11 weeks before Sputnik. And years later, astronauts verified the scenes that she describes in the book of outer space. So much so that at NASA in Space City in the 1970s, pages of my mother's book were photographed, enlarged, and hung in Space Hall in the month of February. Yeah. So nobody was, she was doing things nobody was doing. And when I hear Lift Every Voice and Sing, I think of my mom because it was my mother who came to my school when I was in 2nd grade and taught us Lift Every Voice and Sing.
Were you in school at that time in the States or were you in Mexico?
Oh, this is in the States. This is during a time of legal segregation, right? And I didn't know it because of the way Mommy created activities and things for us to do, and because of the number of volumes that we had in our home. I didn't know, this is going to sound really weird, I know. I didn't know that black people were not allowed to go to the library except on Tuesday. Only on Tuesday. Mama never made a big thing about it being the only day we could go. It was the going that was fun. It was being in the library and being amongst the stacks. The look, the feel, and the smell of books. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and my mother was writing books. It was, I thank you so much for inviting me here tonight because the library is a very special place, as you know, as you well know.
I want to come back to the show that a lot of people know you for, and that character that you created. I know no writer did that. Let me go there now. I was in graduate school or undergrad at the time, and everybody would say, oh, that's a typical black mother. I'm like, not the ones I know. We were not quiet when we were telling people off. You had a way of looking into a child and quietly saying everything that needed to be said. And it was aspirational. I said, when I have children, that's how I'm going to be.
But come on, it's easy when you're scripted.
Yeah, there's a script that you can read, but there's a way that you deliver those lines. Is any of that from your mothering or from your mother?
A little of both, but also I have to say that doing that show, I always felt that that particular role helped me become a better mother.
How so?
Because, all right, you know how we are when we want to be good mothers, right?
Yes, yes.
We want everything to be just right, honey. We want that kitchen clean. We want that bed made. We want those clothes folded. We don't want no mess up in here, right?
Nothing left in the sink.
And you know, and we would just be like die hard about it because this is being a good mother. But in performing it in the Cosby Show, that behavior, some of that behavior, you know, you learn the humor in it. Okay, so Theo's room, for instance. Okay, so Theo is a couple of years older than my son, my son. And when it came to that point, it was only like a year or a year after we had begun, when Felicia, my daughter, was born. That room, I walked in that room one day, Lord have mercy. That room, ooh. But you know, I wasn't angry about it because there was something that was almost humorous about it. Y'all are just not right. Because something's wrong with you. So he came into the room one day and he said, "Mama, can I take the baby into my room for a visit?" I said, "Oh, honey, God forbid. Who knows what'll crawl out from underneath those things and bite this child?" I said, "I'm sorry, son. You have to clean up your room. You can't come in there like that." In half an hour, his room was spotless, just so he could take his baby sister to his room and lay her on his bed.
See, that is the love that you talked about. That is the love that enables you to see beyond just what I see in front of me into his love for this sister. Let me ask you this. Most people who've done all the things that you've done would rest on their laurels and say, "I'm done, I can go sit in the sun and sip whatever people sip when they say that." You decided, "I'm going to be the dean of the fine arts program at the Howard University."
I actually didn't decide that.
Well, you accepted it.
All right, so strategic men, Dr. Wayne Frederick and Chadwick A. Boseman.
Yes.
So a luncheon was arranged for me by Dr. Frederick to be with Chadwick Boseman for lunch one day. We knew each other, and we didn't need that agency, but you know.
You taught him.
Yeah.
In a directing class.
In an acting class, yes.
And then kind of set him up.
Well, I got some support from people to open a door for them to walk into. You know, that's what's important. So we had this luncheon, and Chadwick had delivered a commencement address at Howard University because it was a very sad day when the College of Fine Arts, that was fully accredited in every department, was melded into the College of Liberal Arts And then that became the College of Arts and Sciences. And what had been a College of Fine Arts then became a division of fine arts. And the irony of all of that was I was sitting on the board when it happened and couldn't convince them otherwise. So Chadwick says, well, Miss Rashad, I think we're going to have a College of Fine Arts again. And I said, yeah, you think so? Because he had delivered this powerful speech, and he said, we've got to have it back, you know. And Dr. Frederick is a very forward-thinking individual. He said, well, I think that you could be dean. And I said, Chadwick, I don't think so. He said, no, I really think you could. He said, would you at least apply? And I said, oh, Chadwick, yeah, I don't know, Chadwick. I mean, an academician, I mean, what do I know? Yeah, anyway.
You know.
It seems so. So a position description was sent to me, and I looked at it, and it was the usual formal thing that a university would send, and I looked at that thing, and I said, ooh, no, child. I can't, I'm not ready to retire from my creative work. I can't, you know. And Chadwick passed, and then one day I thought about, I was at home and I just thought of him very spontaneously, and I thought, I could have at least applied. It's not like accepting a position, it's just applying for one.
Had you applied for anything?
No, I had been, I'll tell you this, I had been in institutions of higher learning. I had served as adjunct faculty at NYU, at Vassar. I had been a guest lecturer at Juilliard. Carnegie Mellon invited me every year. I would go there. And then I was the first Denzel Washington scholar at Fordham University. I enjoy working with young, aspiring artists. I love it. When Al Freeman Jr. asked me to come to Howard University, this was when Chadwick was a student, he asked me to come and teach a class, and we were taping Cosby, the second show. I thought, I don't know if I know enough to teach it. I know enough to know it, but I don't know if I know enough to teach it. And what I discovered in teaching was that I learned so much. Mm-hmm. And I loved that. And I loved seeing the lights go on in the young people. And they were so fearless. Oh, they would choose scenes they were too young to know anything about. It's true, but they would put their hearts and soul into a thing, and it would become so believable, and we were able to talk about truth and finding that and what acting really is. Al Freeman Jr. was the chair of that department, and I used to go a little early so I would stay late so I could sit in on his class, because we had worked together in One Life to Live. You know, and he had been an actor that I admired for many years, but never had I been in a situation where I actually heard him talk about acting. And he said that acting is the movement of thought. Woo. And his instruction was so simple. He gave the greatest lesson, simple words: move to the center of thought and put yourself in the way of the experience. And you got to really take that in. What does it mean to move to the center of thought? What is the center of thought? And that's something we can all do for ourselves each and every day. Because the center of thought is like the eye of a hurricane. It's still.
That's, ooh. to these parents and students and folks who want to, your mother gave you all some of the best affirmations to leave life and go in the street. To these folks who want to raise better, be better, live better, find the center of thought. Be the love, be the I. How do we go about beginning to see and feel and walk differently so these babies can move off of Gordon Street, which really wasn't a street, was an alley between 22nd and 23rd?
Self-acceptance. It doesn't matter what has happened.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what you've done or what you thought you did or didn't do. It's not who you are. Self-acceptance. What is that self? That real self? That one that we have to get quiet and be still to know. Self-acceptance. And in being that, just in that simple inquiry, ask and it shall be given. If you really ask for that, really ask to see that in yourself, to know that in yourself, and give yourself to that question earnestly. Self-acceptance. And it's ongoing. It isn't like a one-stop thing, like, oh yes, here it is. No. It is ever evolving. I met a very great being who said, you are beings far greater than you know. Ooh. He said, if you experience poverty and lack in your lives, it isn't the truth of your being. It's condition brought about by your thinking. And for me, that was like hearing, seek ye first.
Yes.
And all else shall be added unto you.
There is a Gnostic gospel in the Gospel of Thomas where Jesus says, you must first know yourself. And when you come to know yourself fully, you will be fully known. If you don't know yourself, you will always be in poverty, for you are the poverty. This idea of, I don't know if y'all were prepared for this deep. This sister is deep. This powerful, powerful conversation about being and becoming. How do we look beyond the circumstances and the situations of everyday life to see into the beyond to become?
It's not so far away, We confess belief in omnipresence, and yet we don't practice this. Because if it's not here and it's not now, where is it? Born in a manger? Born in a manger?
Yeah.
If it's not here and it's not now, where is it?
Right.
And it's not dependent on what's in a bank account. It's not dependent on what you wear. It's not dependent on what you're driving in. It's not dependent on how much that glass of champagne cost or did not. It's just not. But we attach, and it's so human. I mean, come on, it's so human to attach importance to these things because we live in a world where we're receiving information all the time that tells us this is the measure of value of who you are. And historically, let's face it, human beings have not always been kind to one another. Here in America, we know what this is, but it started long, long before the Mayflower. It did. You go back in history, you look at cultures and civilizations, and you see on every continent, everywhere in the world, people have not always been kind to one another. They just haven't. Now, what that is in us, I can only equate it to ignorance of one's own self. Because if you really love yourself, how could you hurt another person?
You are preaching to my soul.
Oh, I don't mean to do that.
No, in a really, really marvelous way. One of the aphorisms, affirmations that I heard you say that your mother taught you was, I wish no ill will to the universe, and the universe wishes no ill will to me.
The universe bears no ill
That's
to
it.
me.
That's
I
it.
bear no ill to it. That's something she would tell us these things and say it after me. The universe bears no ill to me. But you know, we don't understand the things that we say to children. The things that we say to children are very, very important because it's like putting a seed in fertile ground. It really is. The things we say to children and the way we treat them is so important. Little things. You know, we get caught up in stuff. Hey, I had to live to understand what I'm saying to you now.
Yes.
I didn't always understand this.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't always understand this. Even though I had a mother telling me, the universe bears no ill to me, I bear no ill to you. I didn't always understand these things the way I understand them now.
Whenever I enter a situation where it feels like it's against me, I repeat that. And it shifts something. It puts me in charge. It enables me to say, I created this thing that I'm standing in. And so walk in it like it's yours. But that sounds like too easy to people who have it hard.
Yeah, it does. It sounds too easy to people who have it hard. And some people really, come on, have it hard. They really have it hard. So it's difficult to believe that you have within oneself the power to shift. Because the external circumstances are just overbearing. And yet you look at someone like Viola Davis and what she has shared so generously about herself, you know, yet we have that within us. Harriet Tubman couldn't have done what she did if she didn't recognize that within herself.
Yes.
You know, George Washington Carver could not have accomplished all the things that he had accomplished if he had not recognized light within himself. I read an account in which he used to go out into the forest every morning at 3:30. He said God would tell him what his work was to be that day. Communion.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
communion through nature. It's all around us, but some people do have it very, very hard. And that's where we all come in. This is the meaning. This is the power of what? Community. Community. It doesn't have to stay this way. We don't have to be caught in the news narrative of this group being against that group, and there's no hope for any of us. We don't have to live like that. I grew up in community. I could walk to school, and it was a good walk as a little girl, and walk home, and I had no fear that something would happen to me because I lived in community. So, and it seems to me, the way this thing is looking like it's going, community. We have to have rebirth, regeneration of community.
How do we begin to create the community? Even this is a critical mass tonight. How do we walk away from here with this idea that we can live, be, breathe, act differently to change not only our circumstances, but the circumstances for the children and everyone around us?
Self-acceptance. Self-acceptance is first.
Yes.
And when you feel that love inside yourself, you'll know it's the truth for everybody, whether they know it or not. I mean, that experience was so, because sometimes I'm going to tell you, I get mad at people. People act ignorant and I get mad. And I'll be saying, Lord, I know you're in there somewhere, but I swear I can't see you right now. Just show up. It's true. I'm very human. It's true. It takes work.
Constant.
It takes work, constant work
Yes.
and remembrance. And, ooh, I really have to work hard some days. I do.
Has there ever been a time when you thought, I'm gonna slap somebody? Because you just seem like you're gonna go inside, find the love, but there's gotta be a time where you come close to it.
There are times when I have to just turn away,
Yes.
And sometimes I just have to look at people and they'll say, well, Dean Rashad, what is that look on your face? What does that look mean when you look like that? In a moment of unabashed truth, I said, I'm praying for that person. It's true. And in praying for that person, I'm praying for myself. Life is glorious.
Yes. Yes.
I mean that there's the multifaceted aspects of life and trying to find unity, understand that there is unity in all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there is omnipresence. And there is omnipresence.
Yes.
Yeah. Every spiritual path, every religion in the world, every wise person who ever lived says the same thing no matter where on earth they have lived.
Yes.
Everyone who has seen this truth says it throughout time. So there must be something to it.
Gotta be. Yeah.
So I have to keep walking and saying, yeah, all right, I might not see you right now, but I know you're in there. You're going to show yourself, right?
Dean Rashad, I am blown away. Although I had a sense of it, I don't think I'm grateful for everything that you're saying, for everything that you're sharing, for everything that you're showing. And I know it's the truth. I know it's the truth. Deans are not, they're administrators, and they're administrating and conducting and bringing together. What do you want to bring together for us through Howard, through the conducting that you are doing right now?
Envisioning the Chadwick A. Boseman College of Fine Arts, what we come to envision is a creative academic environment with comprehensive curriculum and robust programs, a collaborative space for students, faculty, and staff, with professional affiliations, all geared towards the education, training, and development of artists who are scholars, teachers, and aesthetic cultural activists. That's the vision.
I love it, because our institutions and our communities and our libraries and our things have to maintain and be able to offer the world what we have. I keep telling people, you don't go to Yugoslavia to see the Great Wall of China. And we should own and control the means of production that is ours. The things that we bring forth for the world, not in some kind of divisive kind of way, but to cultivate our excellence for the world.
And to know about it.
Yes.
So when I was 13 years old, as you know, my mother took us to live in Mexico City, right? We lived in Mexico City. We didn't speak a word of Spanish. We didn't know a soul. That's my mother. She woke up one day and said, I've had it. I'm tired of this, what does she call it? Materialistic existence. We're moving. Well, we moved a lot. Always in the same neighborhood, but, you know, a different house up the street around the corner. And so I said, okay, Mama, where are we going this time? We're going to Mexico City. And I thought, that's it. I'll show her. I'll starve myself to death. I won't eat on that bus. She'll be sorry. I was 13 years old, child. Football season was coming up. There was pep rallies and things. I was going to miss stuff. It turned out to be the best thing that ever happened because a whole world opened up. There we were living in Mexico City. Chapultepec, Morales was a playground. The castle, Carlotta's castle, was a playground. We went to Palacio de Bellas Artes every Sunday. Mama kept faith with moving a lot. 1 month we lived in a hotel. That's the first month. Second month we lived with a family down near the Basilica de Guadalupe. Third month we moved back into the center of the city in an apartment. The fourth and last month that we lived in, we went to the very high rent district and lived in an apartment, a top floor apartment, where we could look out every morning and see the sleeping lady and Popocatépetl. You could see them in the sunrise and the sunset, okay? Exposed to all this culture. Just this year at Howard University, with a newly hired co-director of the gallery, who is, how does he describe himself? Well, he's a mixture of Yoruba and Hispanic culture, indigenous culture. He's from the islands, right? So I gave him a charge. I said, you know, I want to know about the influence of African art, aesthetic, and culture in the global diaspora, in different parts of the world, because it isn't just from West Africa to South Carolina to boombox. This, you know, African people have traversed the world since time, and I want to know about this. So he invited these Afro-Mexican artists. Now, I've lived in Mexico. I never knew anybody there who identified as Afro-Mexican. And yet they did and do. And these artists came. So one artist got up at the end of the presentation and he was going to show us a folk dance, right? And this was dance that was coming out of African influence. This was the same dance that I had witnessed at 13 years old, sitting in Palacio de Bellas Artes, and had no context with which to connect Africa to it. There is so much for us to learn about culture, cultural influence throughout the world, and history. Did you know St. Moritz? You know St. Moritz, whom St. Moritz, Switzerland is named after. He was very black, just darling. He was deep, he was a warrior. They've got him in armor with plumes and feathers and things. Finally they show, you know. I mean, this is history throughout history that we just don't know about. It's world history. It's human history. We are so much a part of it. We didn't just drop off the ship. Come on.
So, self-acceptance, learning about ourselves and cultures of the world, sharing it, community, coming together with one another to keep the divide from dividing further. And then back to self-acceptance.
And nurturing our young.
Yes.
Because if we don't, and I see it every day, we're going to have some confused young people. Imagine my chagrin when I stood on the steps of the College of Fine Arts speaking to a freshman accepted in Howard University, where you have to go through all this SAT testing and all this. This was 2 weeks after Colin Powell's passing, and she didn't know who he was. Who is teaching our children?
Oh.
You gotta pay attention.
Yeah.
You gotta pay attention. We have got to pay attention. Or we're going to have some very confused descendants. Bad enough that they're taking script out of the curriculum. It means that our children will not be able to read historical documents and interpret them for themselves.
Yes.
They'll have to wait for artificial intelligence to tell them what it is. Good luck with that. You know, it's nothing to be afraid of, it's something to understand.
I want to, first of all, I am blown away, as we all are. I want to thank you for this evening. I want to thank you for this really beautiful, candid, raw truth that we absolutely need. What do you want to leave us with, and even though we don't want to leave? What do you want to leave us with? And I will have you in my heart forever, because I have a blueprint. You've given us a blueprint tonight. I don't know what more, but what else, what would you like to be your last word before you ease on out into, you got to float. You must float. You are amazing.
When I arrived in the late afternoon, and I saw so many of you in line outside the library, and I looked at you, I was so humbled and so full that you would come to hear anything that I have to say. I would just ask you to leave knowing how grateful I am for you. And I do mean that. So grateful for each and every one of you. Thank you.
Dean Phylicia Rashad. Thank you. Keep it going. Woo! Woo! Amazing beyond belief. Keep it going, please, please, please. I want to thank you. She has not left. You can continue to applaud. This has been, you were incredible. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. There is a book signing of Black World. So let's do that. I'm so proud of my hometown. I'm so proud of you all showing up. Please allow her to have a moment. You all stay in here for a moment, please. Allow her to leave with you know, the piece that needs to happen. If you all will stay just for a moment, just for a moment, just for a moment. And I just want to leave you with this whole knowing that we're sitting in. Center yourself in that. We got so much tonight that we couldn't have paid for. And y'all didn't. So that's right. So let's make sure that we let the library know how important these series are to us and for us. Continue to come and participate in these events. I don't know where the signing is. I'm looking for somebody to tell me what to. It's going to be right there. Okay, so it's going to be right there. She really described Black World. It was really uncanny that she was describing this place, and all of the people she mentioned are in Black World. And I was like, is this happening? Am I sitting? Can y'all see me? Is she out okay? Thank you all so very much. I will see you over there. Thank you.